there, I'm Casey. Welcome back. Now we're on to step 2 of Jumpstart Planning Your Wedding. Now step 2 is kind of a tricky step. We're going to be talking about your budget. And I know that's not a favorite topic that anyone really likes to tackle, but it's something that we need to address head on. And I promise you, if you can do this tricky work up in the beginning, you'll thank me later and it'll make the rest of your planning your wedding a lot easier. So let's dive in right away. One thing I really like to talk about is that I think it's important right in the beginning to have some real conversations with everyone that's willing to invest in this wedding. So whether that's just going to be you and your fiance, or maybe you and your parents or another family member, I think it's really important that you create a space where you guys can get together and really talk about how much money everyone's willing to kind of contribute to the pot, if you will. And I know this can be kind of icky and awkward, so I always say, like, make it fun. Invite people over for dinner. Make sure that the tone of the entire experience is lighthearted and nothing too serious. But really, also make sure that there's this understanding that it's okay to be honest in this meeting. So I don't want people to feel like they need to say that they're going to invest $10,000 in a wedding that maybe they only comfortably can invest $5,000 in, that kind of a thing. So you want to make sure that you're setting a tone for this conversation to be one that's open and honest so that everybody feels good about the experience. And we're starting this, again, planning wedding on a great note and a happy note, not one that's going to cause financial stress and disease. Because I promise you, the one thing to suck the joy out of a wedding is if you're feeling like financial stress around it. So make sure that we have an honest conversation about how much money everybody's willing to invest right off the bat. Guarantee you it's going to make everything a little better moving on down the road. Once you have that idea and kind of have that big number, if you will, of what the grand budget is, that's when you want to go back to your step 1 notes, or if you skipped step 1, I know some of you did out there, but you want to go back and notice what are those priorities that you want to invest in your wedding. So if it's, are you willing to spend a little more on the photographer because you want to have those awesome wedding pictures? Are you wanting to make sure that you have this awesome venue that you've always dreamed of in your life? Make sure that you kind of notice what are those big key items in your wedding that's really going to make or break it for you, and understand that you may be willing to invest a little more of this big budget into those key components. I think it's really important to kind of narrow those down and make sure everybody's voicing what those priorities are for themselves, and make sure that everyone then is going to be happy that we're investing this money in specific ways that are really going to make the day what we want the day to be. So once we have that kind of clear guidelines as to where we're going, how much we're spending, what we're probably going to spend it on, it's super duper important that you start tracking all of your financial commitments and all of the money that you're spending. And do this right from the beginning. It's always hard to move a few months down the road and then have to really sit down one day and really have to backtrack and be like, gosh, how much, get all the contracts out, how much should we commit to so-and-so, what deposits have we already paid? Start doing it right from the beginning. You'll thank me later, I promise. Right below this video, there's a little spreadsheet that I created that I use all the time when I'm working with clients. And it gives a real clear way to keep track of different deposit schedules and keep track of different financial commitments and different dates. So feel free to dive in and start adding those in as you start to make those different financial commitments and decisions. Believe me, you'll thank me later. Also built into the spreadsheet, I have kind of like a percentage guideline for each of wedding categories that you'll probably be spending money in. And by wedding categories, I mean like wedding dress, flowers, invitations, photography, maybe a planner, all those kinds of things. And you have kind of an idea of a guideline of what of your total budget, what the percentage of each of those categories should probably be earmarked for spending X amount of money on. So you kind of know, like, gosh, am I blowing my budget on photography by spending $6,000 on a photographer when I really only earmarked, $2,000 or whatever? That way you kind of have an idea of when you're making those decisions, if you're on point to stay on track to keep your budget numbers where they need to be, or if you're understanding that you're either going to go under or over. And if you're going over, understanding that you're probably going to then have to lessen your budget in one of the other categories. So again, it just helps you make some really educated decisions right in the beginning, so that you don't find yourself, 6 months into the wedding realizing that you've committed to a lot of money that maybe you weren't prepared to commit to, and suddenly you're waking up in the middle of the night thinking, oh my gosh, we're spending how much on flowers? You want to make sure you're making all of these decisions really in it from an educated, strategic space. And I guarantee you that all of these steps are going to help you do that. So one final thought I want you to just kind of keep in the back of your mind is that a lot of couples do end up spending a little more money than they thought that they originally were going to plan to spend on their wedding. And I want you to know that's okay. It's normal. just make sure that if you're tracking and you're keeping track of all your expenses and commitments, that you're going to be aware of that when you start to get to that point. And I think that's the key. So make sure that you know when you're going to maybe be hitting that ceiling or going over that budget, and you're making the conscious choice to do so, and it's not something that you find out after the fact and you maybe don't feel so great about. So just know that budgets are always tricky, but I guarantee you, if you take this time to have those real conversations, be tracking your spending, you're going to provide yourself to have a weight be lifted off your shoulders throughout the process. You're going to enjoy the wedding planning process more, and ultimately your wedding more, because you'll know that you've made smart decisions throughout the process. So tackle this step 2 with love and from a good place. I know it's going to be okay, and you'll be thankful that you put in this hard work in the beginning, I promise. All right, we'll see you in the next video.